So whatever activities they are doing, according to the activities will depend on the nature of the people. Somebody will be involved in learning, teaching, etc. Some people will be involved in industry. Some people will be involved in business, trading. Some people will be involved in other manual work or serving others, various things. But whatever work they are doing, if they can make their mind siddhya siddhyo samabhutva, samatvam yoga uchyate, if they can cultivate this yoga attitude, then the goal is available to anybody. And the height of presentation in Bhagavad Gita comes in 18th chapter, where he has talked about the 4 varnas. And finally, I doubt where this another point which is widely misunderstood, but today I would not be able to speak about it. Often this varna is understood as caste, and not only that, it is understood absolutely wrongly. It is a varna is created by nature. The difference, without variety, there cannot be any creation. Creation means variety. So it is not only human beings, the animals, even nature, the trees, even the stones have got certain nature. And we can categorize them according to some varna over there. Varna is there in our nature. Even if the caste is not there in USA or England or anywhere, you can go and see the caste is there. The varna is there. They may not call them a caste. But can you find out any highly academic person marrying a porter? Generally he will not. He will look for somebody in his own culture, according to his own educational level, his economic level, his cultural level. So children born of such people, will they not have the similar culture to some extent by birth? It will automatically happen. You can see the musicians. When one musician marries another musician, they are dedicated musicians. Then the children, they take to music right from birth almost. And the grandchildren are all the more attuned to music. How does it happen? See that this is how the varna gets converted into jati or caste. Jati means from birth whatever happens. Varna means the natural division, natural categories. And jati means what we gain from our birth. So although varnas are created by nature, by our preference of similar marital relation, friendship and so many other things, automatically it happens that a certain varnas will become prevalent in the family. Maybe there will be difference if a parent, the same couple has got 5 children. They will be different in their, partially different, but overall they will have a general uniformity also. So that is how varna, if it continues for a few generations, it becomes caste in a way. Caste means jati. Although there will be differences. Sometimes in the other varna, somebody will be born who is very much given to learning and knowledge. It can happen. Or in a family where there is learning and knowledge, somebody may is born who is not at all given to learning. This also can happen. But by and large, we can say that the varna characteristics will be followed in the family. And that is how this varna has become jati in our country. But Bhagavad Gita has not spoken about jati at all. It has spoken about varna. And not only this varna, finally when we understand the height of the presentation, the subtlety of the presentation, we understand that all the varnas, when they are purified by our yoga, by the practice, when we are going to the purity level, a single person he contains all the varnas in him. See, what is Brahmana? It is knowledge. It is pure knowledge. The Brahmana varna is given to knowledge pursuit. But basically it is the knowledge. And what is Kshatriya? It is basically, we say, that they are given to action and all that. But normally it is given to egoistic action. But when you take it to its purest level, it means action. Without action, can there be anything in this world? Any activity is representing the Kshatriya tendency. Similarly, the Vaishya, we say it is trading, but actually it is, truly speaking, it is sharing. It is based on the fundamental force of love. The Vaishya trading, without trading can the world live? Without sharing, can the human civilization sustain? Wherever there is sharing, it is the Vaishya Vritti actually. In its purest form, from that level, when we purify our being through the sadhana, in the purest form, this sharing itself is the Vaishya Vritti in us. And what is Shudra? Shudra is service. The service in its great form is not a knower, the greatest Shudra. A knower who has the greatest knowledge. He is the greatest Shudra also. How? Because his purpose of life is only to serve the society. Maybe he is serving with knowledge or serving with writing or whatever. But he is serving. Is it not so? Are you able to appreciate this point? He is serving the society. So he is serving the society. In that he is Shudra. He is serving the society out of love, out of sharing, the feeling of mutuality, sharing. In that he is Vaishya. He is tremendously active in his service of dissemination of knowledge. You know that kind of activity Swamiji undergoes at the age of 82 or 83 now. I don't know. He's 82, I think, 82 or so. The kind of activity he undergoes, it is more than 10 persons' activity. This tremendous action, it is the Kshatriya element. And what is he doing? He is only doing knowledge and knowledge dissemination. He has nothing else than knowledge. It is called Kevala Jnana Nishtha. That means without knowledge there is nothing else. Everything for him is knowledge. So, is not all the four varnas or the four castes there in him? So, Bhagavad Gita has presented that whatever naturally you belong to, by birth you belong to, you can purify your personality to this extent that you incorporate godliness in you, that you become divine by purifying all the varnas in you, and finally you become transcendental, where everything is encompassed in you. So it's a great gospel of personality development. It's a science of personality development. Bhagavad Gita even now is rejected in various cases. At least our government is rejecting. They refuse to introduce in the syllabus, saying that it is Hindu religious gospel. It is, how can we say that it is a religious gospel and it's only for Hindus? It is a science of personality transformation, mind transformation. You can even say it is a technology of mind transformation, personality transformation. Why? The science of mind transformation or personality transformation is there in the Upanishads also. But Bhagavad Gita has analyzed the human personality in great detail. Last year I had taken the 14th chapter in the Triguna model, where we have seen that how human personality is analyzed threadbare and how each quality, each characteristics are to be handled to reach the transcendental level of Gunatita Bhumi, as we call it. We have discussed in great detail last year. Nobody was there to listen. What can I do? So that is the speciality of Bhagavad Gita, that it is not just the science of personality development, but it is, I would like to call it a technology of personality development. Each chapter has taken up the personality from one perspective, one aspect. So even the common knowledge of devotion, knowledge, etc., jnana we have, Bhagavad Gita presents in an altogether revolutionary manner. The 13th chapter we are going to take now, this year, from tomorrow. It presents, this 13th chapter is the first chapter on knowledge. And there he says first, it starts with the shloka that this body is called the kshetra. Kshetra means the field. And one who knows this body is called the kshetrajna. Now we understand that, oh, I know my body, so I am the kshetrajna, this is body is the kshetra. But immediately after that it presents that kshetrajnam cha abhimam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. You know that the kshetrajna is the kshetrajna in all the bodies. Then comes the confusion. I know my kshetrajna, I am the kshetrajna who knows my body. But if the kshetrajna is in all the bodies, then what is this? I don't know about it. So first it has raised this doubt that we see that I know myself, but really speaking, I don't know myself. So we have to have the proper knowledge of myself. It introduced with that and said that the jnana, the knowledge, is one who knows this kshetrajna, who is the kshetrajna in all the bodies, and also the kshetra. Such a jnana, knowledge is called the knowledge. It said that. But thereafter comes a few shlokas where he speaks about 20 qualities, 20 virtues of our personality, which are absolutely universal qualities, nothing to do with any religion. Anybody, anywhere in the world will be envying this quality, will be eager to have those qualities. They are the universal virtues they have enumerated. 20 such qualities he has presented and then said that etad jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yadatonyatha. This is called jnana. What is called jnana? These 20 virtues or 20 qualities of our personality. This is the speciality of Bhagavad Gita. Knowledge, we always think the knowledge is the knowledge of the soul, who am I and all that. But the actualized knowledge will mean that you must have these 20 qualities, otherwise your knowledge will not be accepted as knowledge. Suppose you have read all the Shastras, all the Upanishads, and you know what is soul and what is Brahman and all. But the fact is that what is this soul or the Brahman? It is our true identity. There we miss. You get my point? It is not a truth about the car, about the microphone or the amplifier that I know from the reading and I can use it, I can drive the car, I can use the amplifier. It is not like that. This truth is about our own self, what I am. So unless it becomes actualized, that knowledge will not be accepted as a knowledge. It will only be a bookish knowledge. I always give the example of fire. So suppose I give you the picture of the fire. With that, can you cook your food? Can you get the warmth from it? So the knowledge from the book, reading the book or listening to it, whatever we are getting, it is a picture of the fire. With that, nothing will happen. So that knowledge has to be actualized. It has to be lived. By living, that fire will become a living fire. The more we live, the more the fire will blaze forth. And it will become a living knowledge. So these virtues that Bhagavad Gita presents in a manner that unless you can always test how much knowledge I have acquired. You see whether the virtues have been blossoming in your character or not. They have adorned your personality or not. And you can find out how much it has adorned. That much of knowledge you can easily understand. It is not for analyzing others. It is for analyzing ourselves. That how we are progressing, how much we have gone through. So this is the exemplary presentation of Bhagavad Gita. That it has made all the spirituality absolutely practicable to be practiced by anybody, anywhere in the world, working in any field of activity. It is not going away from the work and sitting only with the scriptures and doing Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana for as it is for exclusive Jnana Nishtha. It is not for that. That is meant for very few. For by and large, for all, this is the knowledge to be practiced. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said that this was there in our country. The Rajas, the administrators were the main custodian of this knowledge, because without that, they would not be able to rule the country properly. They will not be able to administer justice properly. It was there with us, but at the time Krishna is, that Kurukshetra Yuddha, Krishna is saying that it has been lost because power corrupts, the kings have got corrupted, and that is why the country is suffering. At that time also it was suffering. And that is why his plan was to have the Kurukshetra war to establish a righteous rule on the earth. And again the Rajarshi rule. Rajarshi means Raja Rishi, the kings who would have the direct actualized knowledge of this truth also. That is the presentation of Bhagavad Gita. So forget about the kings who are the busiest persons in the world we can think of. It is not like today's war or so, that you sit in a room and from an air-conditioned room you operate the button for sending some drone or some nuclear bomb or missile somewhere. The Raja had to fight standing in the war field. And in that he has to be aware of the knowledge of his identity. It was that kind of a knowledge present. So without actualization of the knowledge, that knowledge cannot be had. It is divinizing every moment of our life. It is not only sitting in meditation and knowing the truth, When you come out of the meditation in active life, you have to know the truth. That is the presentation of Bhagavad Gita. In another sense, it is a book of discipline. The moment we say it is a book of discipline, you don't like it, because nobody wants to follow a discipline. Even the spiritual seekers also, they dislike discipline. Any discipline we put in the Annakshetra, they don't like to follow. Any discipline we put in the guest house, they don't like to follow. Any discipline we want to put in the ashram, for the ashram inmates, they don't like. But without discipline, can human beings live? You see, right from the beginning, suppose you had not undergone the discipline of learning the letters, learning the grammar, learning the language, would you have been able to communicate or read? Would you have got the freedom in the world of literature, the world of communication? It is only the discipline which has given us the freedom in the world of communication, in the world of literature. Similarly, the musicians, how much of discipline they undergo in the beginning. Otherwise, when they open their voice, some other, like a frog, some sound will come. It will not be the... To get the freedom into the world of ragas, how much of discipline one has to undergo? That is, only after undergoing the discipline, they get the freedom in the world of music, in the world of ragas. What about a sportsman? How much of discipline he has to undergo to have the freedom in the world of sports? So everywhere discipline is necessary. By and large, if we look into our life, we will find that we are slave to the world objects and the world situations. When I say it, you may not agree immediately, but you think about yourself. The moment your food is not all right, you lose your self-centeredness. The moment somebody is speaking wrongly to you, or even rightly also abusing you or condemning you, you get agitated so much that you shout more than he is shouting at you. Is it not so? You disagree. So, we don't like that situation. We want always to remain self-seated, but we are not able to remain self-seated. We are slave to the worldly situation. The moment there is something I like, I am attracted to that. I am not able to hold my discipline there. Even food, we often overeat. Whatever is liked by the taste, by the tongue, we overeat. Everywhere we are failing because of our slavery to the objective world and objective situations. So, the entire Bhagavad Gita is a key to mastery. That is how to become master of ourselves. That is how to get anchored. It is not withdrawal from the world, but get anchored in our real identity and then interact with the world. Then we will not become slave. The world will not be able to pull us out. There is nothing wrong in the world. The wrong is entirely lying in our attraction and repulsion, in our ragadvesha, we say in Sanskrit. That we are getting attracted to something and we are hating something. There lies the problem. That is disturbing our mind. So, Bhagavad Gita is the technology to teach us how in practical life we can work in any field of action, remaining anchored in our true identity, so that we can always remain master of the world by becoming master of ourselves, by becoming master of our own mind and intelligence and emotion. This is in a nutshell, the universal science of Bhagavad Gita. Tomorrow onwards, we will take up the 13th chapter. I will conclude now with a chanting. This shloka you know. While I am chanting, you can close your eyes and think about it. It is again not a religious shloka at all. None of our shlokas are religious. It is again personality development. It is only confirming and instituting our real identity in us. It says that Akashaval lepa vidura goham. That means I am untainted, untouched, unaffected, like the sky, or better is the space. Sky also gets affected, but better will be space, Akasha, the space. Then Adityavat bhasya vilakshanoham. That means as the sun is illuminating everything and by itself it is self-luminous, like that our real identity is the ultimate self-luminous reality. It is more than the sun, because to know the sun, that I has to be there, the consciousness has to be there to reveal the sun. But this I cannot be revealed by anything else. Our I, our own identity, it has to be self-revealed. It reveals The whole world, external world, as well as the internal world of mind, thoughts, the emotions, everything is revealed by it, and it reveals itself. So it is the only real self-luminous identity. Aharyavan nitya vinishchaloham, like the mountain I am unshakable, because it is all pervading, the whole universe is appearing in it. There is no question of any movement. Movement means object. The subject, we cannot have any movement at all. We cannot conceive of any movement, because whatever moves is limited, is small. It is an object. Even the concepts are object. Even the thought, the concept of God, they are also object, because they are revealed by my consciousness. So that I alone is the unmovable, unshakable truth. Then Ambodhivat para vivarjitoham. There is no limit. I am unbounded like the ocean. This is the shloka. I will chant and then come. Akashavalle viduragoham adityavadbhasya vilakshanoham aharyavanitya vinishchaloham ambodhivat para vivarjitoham. Would you like to chant? Then I can chant one line, you can follow. Akashavalle viduragoham adityavadbhasya vilakshanoham aharyavanitya vinishchaloham ambodhivat para vivarjitoham. Why are you so fearful? Chant loudly. I will raise the scale. Akashavalle viduragoham adityavadbhasya vilakshanoham aharyavanitya vinishchaloham ambodhivat para vivarjitoham. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Guru.